Hushed thunder rolled along the cliffs of the southern ring, where a chain of sleeping volcanoes stitched the horizon like smouldering beads. I arrived in that desolate coastal settlement, Ash Haven, they called it, on the night a storm raged so fiercely one could not tell the lightning from the lava fountains across the bay. I was a scholar then, dispatched by the Imperial Archive to verify or debunk a legend my superiors deemed a rustic fancy, the Obsidian whale that swims beneath volcanoes, singing magma into crystal reefs. My sealed orders asked only for observation, but my heart sought a different truth. How could a creature forged of molten stone live in blistering corridors no human eye had seen? How could song coax rock into delicate, shimmering architecture? I intended to find out, even if the answer melted every certainty I possessed. The first person who spoke of the whale to me was an old ferryman named Lomar. His boat, a lean outrigger carved from petrified cedar, bobbed against the soot-slick dock like a charcoal feather. Smoke from volcanic vents drifted over the tide, and the moon was a smudge of ember behind clouds. Lomar's face bore the creases of one who had spent a lifetime squinting into firelit mist. When he smiled, the cracks deepened like cooling basalt. "You seek the heart singer?" he said after I introduced myself. "Careful what truths ye mine. Obsidian cuts both ways." I asked whether he had heard the whale's voice. He nodded and tapped the bony nub of his ear, heard and felt. Its song shakes the spine more than the eardrum. Some nights the seafloor hums like a cathedral bell. Stones lift off the bottom and shiver in the water, rearranging themselves in lattices finer than glass. Next morning you'll find reefs where there were none, spires of crystal sharp as prayer. Fish weave through them like coloured threads. Then the heat rises, the water roils, and everything begins again. I trudge back to the caldera tunnels, rumoured to lead beneath the mountains. He refused at first, muttering that no mortal belonged in the furnace where the whale roamed. But coin holds persuasion, and curiosity even more. When he learned that I carried instruments, seismographs etched on copper scrolls, resonance flutes calibrated to subterranean pitches, his resistance softened. "Scholar or not," he warned, "remember, what you're hunting is older than the ocean. Even the volcano bows to it. Your tape and quills may capture echoes, but they won't capture the beast's mercy." For 3 days I lingered in Ash Haven, gathering scraps of myth like volcanic ash on a sleeve. A net mender named Salus swore the whale was born when the sky first cracked with lightning and spilled darkness into the sea. A glassblower claimed fragments from shattered reefs glowed with inner fire for decades. He melted them into lanterns that required no wick. Children told me if they pressed conches to their cheeks during an eruption, they heard lullabies descending through the steam. None agreed on size. Some said the whale dwarfed islands, others pictured it slender as a narwhal, but all described its skin the same, obsidian polished to mirror sheen, so smooth it reflected every flame around it, making the creature nearly invisible within molten light. On the 4th dawn, Lomar led me to a fissure hidden behind curtains of sulphur steam. We rode through caverns flooded with seawater so hot it hissed against the hull. The ceiling dripped with gemstones, crystallized from gas, garnet, peridot, citrine, arranged in constellations no astronomer had charted. Deeper still, the boat scraped a shelf of igneous brick. We disembarked and walked, shoulders brushing walls veined with glowing ore. My instruments clicked, measuring tremors I could feel in my teeth. Somewhere beyond stone and darkness, something was singing, soft yet omnipresent, like blood coursing through the whole planet. The tunnel opened into a chamber that might once have been an eruption's throat. A lake of magma swirled at its center, bridged by a crust of obsidian slick as oil. The heat stole breath, but not wonder. Across the molten waves rose forests of crystal coral, towers and spirals gleaming blue, violet, and ghost white, all pulsing to an unheard rhythm. Lomar halted at the threshold. "This is where I leave ye," he whispered. "My bones know when to kneel." He retreated, leaving only the whale's song and me, a mortal shivering between extremes of fire and ice. I knelt, unpacked my flutes, and began to play a single tentative note tuned to the tremor pulsing through the stone. The air shimmered as if ironing wrinkles from reality. Magma heaved inward, then out, like the lungs of some hidden titan. My note wavered, found resonance, and locked. The chamber brightened. Every crystal flared. Then the lake parted. Not boiled nor exploded, but sank away, swept aside by a body so vast my knowledge of scale collapsed. Imagine a whale, yes, but one sheathed in glossy black fused from earth's hottest tears. Imagine its eye, a molten core rimmed in silver fissures, gazing from a head broader than any barge. It rose, opalescent reflections of flame sliding along its back, and the song that vibrated through every mineral current burst into audible form, throaty, panoramic, ancient. Not melody, not language, but sculpture in sound, a shaping force. I forgot the flute. I forgot breathing. I understood then why people described the creature in contradiction. It was darkness that shone, weight that floated, ferocity that cradled. The whale's jaw opened, releasing a plume of incandescent bubbles. Wherever a bubble touched the cavern walls, silica folded itself into blossoms. A single note from its throat fractured stalactites into dust, then reassembled the particles into translucent birds that glided along convection drafts, before dissolving back to sand. In that moment, I realized legend had undersold the miracle. It was not merely singing magma into crystal. It was composing geology into life, time into sculpture. The volcano was its instrument, and the planet's heart its echo chamber. And I, intruder, had entered mid-symphony. The whale's eye turned toward me. A slow orbit, no more than curiosity, but the force behind its gaze pressed memory upon memory into my skull. Itroni, I saw images unhinged from chronology. The young Earth blistering under meteoric bombardment, the whale carving refuge caverns for the first microbes. Continents tearing like parchment, while crystalline reefs stitched fault lines. Civilizations glimpsing luminous pillars beneath lakes and mistaking them for messages from gods. I saw Ashhaven in ashless times. Children diving among opal kelp, the whale guiding them away from fishes that would later swallow streets. Finally, I saw myself, a flicker in the creature's timeline, kneeling with a flute I no longer held. Words returned with difficulty. I asked why it created beauty doomed to shatter in the next eruption. The answer was not syllables, but sensation. That impermanence was music. That fracture was chorus. That the reef's collapse fed the next crescendo. In its view, destruction and composition were stanzas in the same endless hymn. My knees burned against vitrified rock, and still I watched. The whale descended again, submerging into magma, yet its song continued, now gathering intensity. Crystals leaned toward one another, linking into bridges over molten pools. Colors migrated over facets like oil on water. My seismograph jittered wildly. I realized an eruption was underway, orchestrated rather than accidental. Instinct said flee, but I could not leave the performance unfinished. Instead, I fixed fresh copper sheets to my device, hoping to translate vibration into etchings. As the temperature soared, inks vaporized, glass lenses cracked, and metal grew pliant, yet lines scratched themselves into the copper all the same, guided by invisible quills. They formed spirals nested within spirals. Back in the archive, we call such patterns sacred geometry, though never had it been this literal. Suddenly, the chamber walls split, releasing a torrent of steam. A column of magma shot upward, bearing the whale within it like a prophet ascending flame instead of cloud. The ceiling blew apart, revealing a night sky stained red by ash. I ran, following newly formed crystal bridges toward the tunnel's mouth. each step ringing like chimes underfoot. Behind me, the whale's crescendo peaked, a roar stitched with harmony. The volcanoes above responded, venting fountains that painted the sky with incandescent petals. I burst from the fissure onto the slope of Ashhaven's tallest cone, just as dawn cracked over the sea. Villagers had gathered on the black sand beach, staring open-mouthed at the spectacle. When the sun cleared the horizon, light refracted through airborne shards of quartz and diamond dust, casting rainbows upon the waves. And there, just offshore, rose a reef that had not existed the day before. A labyrinth of spires and arches gleaming so bright it seared after-images on the eye. Lomar found me stumbling down the slope, hair singed, instruments charred beyond salvage. He said nothing, only handed me a waterskin. Together we watched the newly birthed reef whisper under lapidary foam. Fish already darted within its cavities. From within its core, heat shimmered like a beating pulse. I stayed in Ashhaven for weeks, recording how the reef cooled, how it altered currents, how schools migrated in patterns echoing the whale's song. Children sailed paper lanterns into its hollows at night. The glass soaked up the emberlight and glowed like embers. Divers returned with slivers of crystal that hummed when held to the chest. A healer claimed the resonance mended fractured bones. Oh, it said the notes turned grief into glass. One could hold to the light without it hurting. Yet the reef was unstable, anchored on a bed of still molten stone. Fissures widened daily. Some villagers grew fearful, demanding it be broken apart lest it collapse upon them. Lomar argued that the reef was a promise, that as long as it sang, the volcano would sleep. The debate split Ashhaven along lines deeper than any fault, and into that tension stepped the Empire, whose crest I bore. My report, dispatched by Carrier Gull, had reached the capital faster than expected. Imperial galleys arrived, bristling with alchemists who saw in the reef not art, but resource. Crystalline fuel for furnaces, lenses for war towers, gemstones for crowns. They dismissed my warning that removing even a shard might silence the reef's stabilizing hymn. Greed, like lava, rarely heeds caution. Under the governor's seal, workers set about harvesting. At first they chipped only the outer arms, cautious and reverent. Nothing happened. Confidence swelled. They brought out heavier tools, pried entire pillars free, loaded them onto barges. The reef's song faltered, then warped, shifting from major to minor, from lullaby to lament. Seawater seeped into fresh fractures, hissed into vapor, and the magma bed grumbled below. I confronted the lead alchemist on the docks. "You are unweaving a lullaby," I pleaded. "When it ends, the child waits," he sneered, implying my loyalty wavered. "Truth serves the throne, scholar, not myth." He held up a prismatic shard. "With this, we light 1,000 cities." Perhaps. But as barges departed, the sky dimmed, though no cloud crossed the sun. The song grew so dissonant, birds fell mid-flight. Fish floated belly up, stunned by pressure waves. At twilight, I heard the wail again, a note like a continental plate grinding, rising from beneath the reef. That night, the volcano roared. What unfolded was less eruption than uprising. The sea boiled in luminous rings. The reef shattered outward, shards spinning like hurled stars, carving holes through hulls. Barges burst into flame despite being afloat. From the crater's mouth, the Obsidian whale breached, not through water, but through molten rock that poured down its sides like gilded rain. Its song was no longer shaping. It was warning. Towering waves chased every vessel, imperial and village alike, back to shore. I ran with Lomar toward the headland, shouting for people to climb higher. Behind us, streets cracked, houses toppled, yet amid chaos, I felt a rhythm. Collapses timed with breaths, thunder aligned with heartbeats. The whale was conducting destruction with surgical grace, steering lava flows around schools, curving tsunamis away from certain cliffs. It was teaching us a final lesson. When art is desecrated, The revision writes itself in fire. By dawn, the violence eased. The whale, encircled by steam, sang a coda of descending notes before slipping under the heaving sea. The reef was gone, reduced to glitter strewn across beaches. Ashhaven smouldered but still stood. The lava had flowed around its core, sparing the Grand Banyan at the town square. The well, even the orphanage. Losses were real, yet partial, as if mercy had been bargained mid-catastrophe. In the sober hush that followed, the Empire retreated, licking wounds deeper than treasury vaults. Villagers began collecting scattered fragments, not to sell but to seed new breakwaters, memorial cairns, wind chimes. Each piece hummed faintly, hinting that the whale's music survived in shards, waiting for hands to assemble fresh harmonies. I resigned my commission, choosing to remain. My shattered instruments I buried under the banyan, letting roots decide their fate. Instead, I took up silent practice, arranging small crystals on torched sand, experimenting with resonance by moonlight. Sometimes, if the pattern pleased unseen judges, the pieces glowed and fused, forming tiny bridges like those I'd crossed in the cavern. I never forced the outcome. I only listened and adjusted. Creation, I learned, is a negotiation with forces vaster than ambition. Years have passed. Children born after the eruption ask why the shoreline gleams with glass pebbles that sing when tides roll over them. I tell them the whale is still down there, shaping the planet's skeleton, and that every storm, every tremor, every shimmer is part of a score we are privileged to witness. I caution them that a song is both gift and guardian. Accept the marvel, honor its boundaries, and it will cradle your village in reefs of light. Betray it, and obsidian justice will rise, sharp as regret. Sometimes, on still nights, I walk to the cliff where the old lighthouse once burned. Salt wind stings my scars, and I lift a conch to my ear. The sea below is black, the volcano dormant, yet spattered with ember. From beneath, a hum ascends, low, vast, familiar. I close my eyes, letting the notes settle into the cavities of bone and memory, and I feel the world rearrange itself, grain by grain, into something briefly perfect. I know now what the legend truly chronicles. Not a beast, but a balance, a covenant, signed in molten ink. The obsidian whale is the keeper of that pact, its voice the clause that never expires, and we, frail scribes of fleeting empires, are merely the footnotes, worthwhile only if we learn to read the music etched into stone before the final refrain folds our cities into dust and sets new reefs singing where we once believed only destruction could dwell.